So let's get started. My name is Nimisha. Thank you so much for the warm introduction, Thomas. I'm currently a product manager at Uber. I'm based out of Seattle in the US, so I'm on the West Coast. And today I'll be talking to you all about building AI products across B2B and B2C scenarios. Awesome. So let me bring up the agenda here. I'd like to give you the briefest introduction to myself as possible, although Thomas already did that. We'll get into what AI products mean. I know there's a lot of buzz around this, so I'm here to demystify that. And finally, we'll talk about how exactly products are built from scratch all the way up till you launch and monitor them across B2B and B2C scenarios. And I'm going to be taking examples from my own, all the products that I've helped ship. So it's going to be a packed talk. I hope you all will stay with me. So as a quick introduction, my background is basically in computer science and engineering. I did that in India. Came to the US to get my master's focusing on data science. And I came into Microsoft as my first job as a data scientist. I've led a number of lives here as an engineer, data scientist, and finally stumbling into product, as Thomas already mentioned. I worked across a couple of different teams, but mostly I was doing B2C products here, where I was working on advertisements. How do we get people like you and me to find the ads that we surface across so many different products on Microsoft to be useful, and you actually click on them and buy something? When you have beasts like Google and Amazon, which are already there, taking up the entire market share, how do we still stay relevant? And boy, we did. I wanted to experience what startup culture would be. So I moved into this company called Instacart Next as a product manager. If you all are aware of Instacart, if not, it's basically one of the largest online grocery delivery marketplaces in US and Canada right now. They have about 70% of the market share. So I went in there completely unfamiliar to the enterprise SaaS or B2B space. And I was actually a product manager who was responsible for improving promotions for all the brands that want to sell their groceries on Instacart. So very interesting and different business. Finally, I moved on to Uber, and that's where I am right now. We aim to reduce the number of crashes and accidents on the platform in our road safety team. And we use a lot of machine intelligence to do that. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. All right. So getting into the core of our talk here, I'm going to be referencing AI products a ton. And what that basically means is that it's a product which is behaving that the way it should be behaving because there's a statistical model behind it. There's some sort of machine intelligence which is making the product react in a certain way to your user or to the user's behavior. So AI products are everywhere around us, right? Right from when you all have woken up today and I have woken up. What's the first thing you did? If you think back, I don't mean brushing your teeth. If that's what you did, that's awesome. I basically looked at Instagram. So everything within Instagram is ML or AI powered, right? Like you open it up and on your feed, if you see our best friend's birthday post, it's because this person is important to you and Instagram knows that because of a very good personalized recommendation algorithm. And that's an amazing product, which is powering your feed. When you get ready and on your way to work, you're probably using Spotify to listen to songs. And if you don't know what to listen to, you have your AI DJ that gives you song recommendations. And that's obviously powered by ML. Once you get to work, you're probably using a whole ton of different tools like Asana, Notion, Jira, all of that, right? All of those are hosted on cloud. And the reason why none of these platforms or products are crashing is because you have a ML-based load balancer that makes sure that these products have enough cloud storage and stuff to function on a daily basis. So, and I'm talking about these products which were actually ML powered probably 10 years ago, right? Today we have ChatGPT running our lives. So yeah, AI products are everywhere. And it just so happens that almost all the products that I have helped build or ship have some sort of AI behind them because I transitioned from being a data scientist to product manager. Just natural occurrence to me. All right. So now that we know what AI products are and it's not a scary thing, let me talk a little bit about the different products or like the spaces that I was in at these two companies, because I'm going to be taking some examples and I'm going to be talking about them a lot. So I want you all to be on the same page. So let me catch you up really quick. When I was at Microsoft, as I mentioned, I was in the ads business. Now, this ads business is a beast of a business on Microsoft. It drives about $7 billion of ad revenue every year. And about, close to 150 million people come to something like Bing.com to search for their needs on a daily basis. So there are a variety of different ads that we surface. And I was specifically part of this slice called product ads. So when you go onto something like a Bing.com and you search for, I don't know, Halloween decorations or fall outfits or anything really, which has a retail intent to it, the products that you see within the ads carousel on various different surfaces is what I used to be responsible for. And the goals that, as a product team, that we would take was to increase the revenue based on these products. So we had to make sure that the products were relevant, they were personalized. It made sense to the users who actually came onto Bing.com. So our metrics were all around, CTR, CPC, all of those ads related metrics. And this was sort of our B2C operations where our C as in customers were online shoppers or potential online shoppers. On the Instacart side, I worked also kind of adjacent to the ads business, which is close to about $1 billion. For a unicorn and a startup like Instacart, it's a pretty big deal. Instacart recently went IPO as well, and the ads business was a huge driver for that. So here, right, I ventured into the B2B or enterprise SaaS space. And my customers were all brands like Lay's and Pepsi and Olipop and all of these other, consumer packaged goods or CPG companies who want to sell their products on Instacart to shoppers like you and me. So this was sort of the B2B segment of the company. And the products that I helped build out were for these brands to be able to promote their products better. So you can think of promotion campaign managers and the ML algorithms that power the intelligence behind all of this. So now that we know the two different product settings, let's quickly get into the talk. All right. So as a product manager, once you identify a user need or you define a problem, there are about 5 different very high-level stages that you go through before you actually launch your product and start monitoring it. There are probably 20 stages, but for the scope of this talk, and because we have like 30 or 45 minutes, I've compressed it into 5 different phases. So quickly getting into the first phase, which is problem definition. So as a product manager in B2B, let me just recap. At Instacart, my customers were brands, right? Or these CPG companies like Hershey's and Lay's. So for these folks, we had to build the best products possible so that they can promote their, chips and, Cokes and soda cans and whatnot on Instacart as well as possible so that they can meet their goals of reach, revenue, all of the different goals that they have. So how do you exactly understand the problems that these kind of users face? How do you generalize it across all the, hundreds of thousands of CPG companies that you have? And also kind of keep up with the industry, right? And how do you sort of pick the problem that you end up solving? I think the problem definition part in B2B is one of the most interesting parts to me personally, because you get to actually talk to your user. You get to get into a room with them and ask them what is not working, what is working, how they are able to sell well on other platforms. How is Instacart probably, lacking? Where are we lacking and what can we build for them? So that's kind of how you get into the understanding of the user face within B2B scenarios. You do a lot of interviews, you do a lot of UXR, you have relationships with the stakeholders who actually manage your customers directly. And as part of the industry and market research, You typically see yourself subscribing to newsletters or blogs around the industry that you're in. So I remember, making sure that I was reading things which had titles like trends shaping the future of the CPG industry and whatnot. I saw myself trying to attend conferences and read out conference proceedings to see where the industry was going, so that we always know what sort of gaps that we are helping patch within this industry for the CPGs. So identifying the problems is sort of a mixture of both of them. So I'll tell you the specific problem that we sort of encountered, that we decided to prioritize. Um, our brands or customers basically told us, hey, we're doing a really good job on Instacart. We're selling all of our products well, we're promoting them well. But we're noticing that the kind of users that we think would buy our products are actually not buying our products. So we want to understand why that's happening. And we want to target these people better, right? So can you help us do that? So that was sort of the problem setting for us. We spoke to the users and they expressed their needs. They did not know how to solve it themselves, but they expressed a problem. And that was good enough for us to get started. Now, flipping sides to B2C, if you think about a scenario like Microsoft and millions of shoppers, online shoppers that you have, you can't really understand all the users by talking to a few of them, right? It's very hard to generalize. Sure, I can ask my friends about what's not working for them on Bing.com. That's a great way to get started, sure. But the pulse of the user is always going to be in your dashboards. Your users are represented by numbers. I'm not saying that B2B doesn't have this, but B2C has only this. Um, your understanding of the user is going to be good if your dashboards are good and creative enough. So you look at all of the different user engagement, revenue, retention, churn data, and basically figure out, okay, our online shoppers are buying products in these kind of categories based on their search queries and impressions, but certain other things are just not working out. So what do we do? How can we solve their needs better? So industry and market research also is very important here, but it is good to stay plugged in, but you really understand more about what's happening in your product specifically with respect to your users by doing more and more of query analysis and other things like that. So mostly quantitative research, very broad level research is how it looks like on the B2C scenario. So when we dug into our data here, the problem that we encountered was when online shoppers or potential online shoppers came to Bing.com and searched for, mid-century modern home decor, for example, or boho bed frames or something like that, they were clicking a lot on the search results, which is great for the search engine, but they weren't clicking on the ads, even though we were doing a really good job of surfacing exactly what they needed in terms of relevance. So what was going wrong? So an analysis of what they clicked on unearthed that the users, or the shoppers in our case, were all clicking into links which had a lot of images and videos in them. So they were going on to Pinterest and other web lifestyle websites which had a lot of more discovery or top of funnel related content. So we were doing the right thing in terms of surfacing the ads. We were just meeting the users at the wrong time, was the intuition, at least at the time. So we wanted to solve that problem, meet the users at the right stage when they really want to buy something, as opposed to show them like millions of ads when they're in their research or discovery phase. So that sort of is a summary of how B2B and B2C scenarios tackle problem definition or identification. Next, what happens is you have a vague idea of how to solve this problem or a vague idea of the solution rather. But you want to validate it and make sure that even going through this entire process of prototyping and testing makes sense, right? Can you build this right now? And does it make sense to the customer? So when we spoke about the concept of personalized promotions to our brand partners at Instacart as the solution that we want to take ahead, we made sure to speak to not just the immediate clients who use our dashboards to create their promotions campaigns, but we also spoke with industry key experts, right? You want to understand what the appetite of the industry as a whole is to this whole new product that is getting built. Because at the end of the day, you're not building for 2 or 3 customers. You want the entire customer base to adopt your product. And you don't want tech debt on your hands, hopefully. And every time you think about building anything powered by machine intelligence or ML, AI for that matter, there's data that's going to be going into training this model, right? And that means that you need to make sure that you have the right permissions to use this data. The customer needs to be aware of the data that's being used to train these models because ultimately they're using the benefits of this model. So there are a lot of privacy and legal proceedings that need to happen, especially in the B2B scenario, so that there's ethical AI practices before the customer actually agrees to use something like this. For example, if you're using user clicks and impressions data to train this model, the brand should be aware of this. If you're using the brand's websites to do some sort of attribution analysis, they need to know this. So you need to carve out some time to create documentation around this and actually talk to the customers and make sure they're open to even using a product like this. So that's what happens with concept teasing when it comes to products powered by ML usually. Gauging whether the customer is ready to use sort of an ML powered product, making sure that they're open to understanding the privacy guidelines, and finally understanding whether it's even feasible to do this. Like if we build out a version of the product like an MVP, where it's not a full-fledged, service hosted on cloud, but we give them a very offline experience, for example. Is that something that they can even technically run on their laptops? Something as basic as that, right? Because if you have an ML model and you don't have the 3-month time frame to build out an API around it or a service endpoint around it, can you just build a very simple wrapper and give it to them? And can they run it locally? Is that even possible? So those are the questions you need to sort of discuss with your clients or even with your client partners before you venture into this whole product development lifecycle. And you need to secure buy-in, right? It's in the B2B scenarios, if you have a few customers on board who will be your partners throughout this prototyping journey, that's a huge win because that's what you need to do your CI/CD or continuous iteration and making your models better before you actually launch them. So identifying those clients who can be your partners throughout this whole journey would be a huge win. And that's probably the most crucial step in this validation and planning process. And making sure that they are aware of their commitments as your partner throughout this prototyping journey. Validation and planning in B2C scenarios looks a little different. You're not really partnering with any user. You're teasing out the concept to internal teams. You're trying to convince your teams internally that the intuition that you have is correct. And the more diverse your internal stakeholders are, the better you will be at coming out with a good product. Because as many diverse opinions you get very early on in the journey, the pitfalls you can unearth the sooner in the journey and you can, create an awesome product. So our intuition was that Bing.com users probably gravitated more towards image and video content. So I wanted to make sure that this was true for most online shoppers. So we did a lot of analysis to understand whether this was really the intention and what was the behavior of users across different search engines for this. And even within our own search journey, what's happening. So that's sort of teasing out the concept here. And once you understand, okay, we need to build out a solution where we show these potential online shoppers ads based on the images and videos that they see on their online shopping journey. Basically, we need to build out a series of ML models which utilize the images and videos that the online shoppers are looking at and extract products out of them. That's a pretty complicated machine learning product to build, especially if you start throwing, vaguely similar looking products at users. They might get frustrated and think that it's just, noise coming at them. You need to do a really good job, like precision should be really high. So what is the feasibility assessment of a product like this? First of all, in order to build these kind of computer vision or machine learning models, do we have enough data to train? our models. That's the first thing. The second thing is, where are we debuting this product, and how do products or images and videos vary depending on, say, the country you're in, the kind of products that are being searched for. Do we have enough inventory? If someone's searching for, a dupatta or a sari, which is a piece of clothing in India, um, in America, there are probably not enough products to surface, right? So it doesn't make sense for us to venture along those kind of catalogs. So understanding the data availabilities, making sure that if we use any sort of website data to build ML models, we actually have permission to do that. And making sure we have the right infrastructure capabilities to host these models and service endpoints. How long will it take to do all of this to even solve a problem for a subsection of products? And making sure you discuss all of this with your internal teams and get buy-ins from your cross-functional partners, which are your partner technical teams, your partner technical product managers, TPMs, etc. So where we landed on this case was, I think we scoped it to something like solving for images and videos which are related to home decor content, because clothing was way too diverse to pick up as the first topic. So now that you have a vague plan, basically you land on a number of months or weeks or days that you would be taking, the resources that you need to even start your prototype building, and you have an idea of who the subsection of users are that you want to tackle. You start designing your solution and prototyping it. So what this means is, in your B2B scenario, so in our case, we had identified a couple of clients who would be partnering with us on this journey. And we started keeping them in mind and building the product. So we started doing the data collection, keeping the clients informed about where the data is from, and making sure that they've signed everything that needs to be signed, and understanding the infrastructure limitations that they have. So this is how you create like your ERD and your PRD, and make sure that you have all the resources in place. Make sure that the machine learning models that you're actually building in association with the data science team, you have to have a lot of communication with the data science team during this part of the journey, because you need to let them know that they're building for scale, even though we're keeping a few clients in mind. Because we may not have the time for scaling or generalizing the model once this picks up in the market and once this experiment goes really well, right? So you basically should have one eye on what is going to happen in your North Star product when you are sort of in your data collection and even training of the model's journey. You also need to evaluate the limitations of your ML model very early on in the journey, so that you can prepare for it really quickly when you have to expand your data set, when you have to expand the scope of your ML models soon after your beta testing is done and you're ready for launch. And one of the really fun parts of this B2B side of things during this journey is the initial feedback. So there's a lot of chaos during this time, and B2B folks who are in the audience right now will definitely relate to this. When you let the clients know that some form of the solution is ready, they're so excited. They immediately want to understand everything that's happening. They want to quickly test it out, but they don't know how, right? They really want to get onto things, but you need to explain to them how they should onboard onto the model. You need to train your customer, accountants in order to do a lot of hand holding for the customers. They would want to understand how the machine learning model actually works, but due to certain NDA rules, you can't explain to them exactly how the algorithm is working, but you should be able to explain the features that have gone into the model uh, on the basis of transparency and all of that. And they give you a lot of feedback, a lot of instant feedback, which is great, which you can take back into your iteration process. Now, the thing with iterations on ML, like products powered by ML, is that you go back to the starting board. There's no middle ground for this, because you can't go and shift a few, for example, buttons around and change the UX and show it to the customer again. When it's an ML product, you have to retrain the model all over again, right? Or you need to um, yeah, basically you need to change things in your data set, you need to change things in your validation, all of that. So the entire journey starts all over again. So you can't always do 10 iterations, for instance. You can probably do one or two cycles of this. So what you select as your first set of features that kind of go into your ML solution is crucial. So it would be awesome if you informed yourself of this whole ML lifecycle journey if you're venturing into building AI products. It really gives you an edge, especially while chatting with customers. In the B2C side and the B2C side, the designing and prototyping is a little quieter in the sense that you don't have any users who are going to be, you know, having eyes on this throughout the journey. The only time this MVP of yours would be available to users is when you actually do your A/B testing, right? So this part of your journey, which is designing and prototyping, is extremely internal. You might do a bunch of surveys to get feelers for certain user segments, or maybe some UXR studies with certain segments of users. We definitely have done that in the past, but that would certainly impact the design of your solution, but it wouldn't really affect the prototyping as much once you actually start putting in the development lifecycle and all of that. So the interesting part of B2C is that once you've figured out all the data concerns like privacy, ethical AI guidelines, all of that, once you figure it out and your infrastructure is in place, you dictate sort of which are the users who will be using this, who are the users we want to test it out. So the amount of risk involved is a tad lesser than what you would have with your B2B scenario. Although, if you do a terrible job, the first impression does remain memorable, and certain products have failed because of it. But I would say if you do control testing, this part of your journey is a little less stressful compared to how it is for B2B scenarios. So the stage that we were when it came to Microsoft and this whole multimedia powered ads was that we got initial feedback from both the surveys as well as our internal stakeholders that what we were building made sense. Our machine learning models were giving us really good offline metrics. And when we understood the requirements for, the cloud tokens, the other infrastructure related decisions that needed to be made to host these machine learning models as endpoints, things were pretty good to go. So we were in the stage where, okay, we have everything ready. Let's go build this. So switching back to the B2B scenario for development and testing, once we started training the model and actually validating it, we started noticing, there are not every training and validation journey is going to be smooth. Every training and validation journey will unearth certain parts um, of the use cases that the model is just not suited to provide solutions for. Like you can't use the model's insights for every possible user's use case. So that's when you sort of go back to your drawing board a little bit and scope down or scope up the solution, right? So in this case, we had to go back to a couple of our client partners who were on our journey and let them down easy because solving problems for them would mean a little more thought process into how we were building these models. So out of the maybe 10 different clients who are going to be with us on this journey, we had to let about two or three know that we would be working with them in a couple of months as opposed to now. So that's pretty common when it comes to the early development life cycle and validating the scalability of the model and all of that. And throughout this journey, there could be some delays. There could be delays in terms of procuring resources, issues that you have to go back and mitigate. All of this could lead to delays. So you keep your customer essentially informed of the timelines. And as soon as you have some sort of a front-facing UI UX component to your solution, you would want to make sure that you have good feedback from the clients. So I probably forgot to mention that earlier, but that's part of the design decision making. So during your engineering development, whenever there's a machine learning model that you're probably hosting, inferencing capacity is something that you have to keep in mind. And if you're building something that's really simple and doesn't have a service at all, then the inferencing capacity of your end as well as the customer's end is what needs to be discussed. As I mentioned earlier, if you're, offloading this model to the client side and like they need to figure it out a little bit, then you need to probably help train folks on that side, on the client side, basically, to actually pick something like this up and work with you very closely. So that also kind of goes into picking the right clients for this whole journey. So these are the small ways in which whenever you have like an AI or an ML algorithm powering a product, the decision making sort of slightly, is sprinkled throughout this whole process where it goes back to picking the right customers who can be your partners. They should be slightly more tech savvy than the other folks. Yeah, so finally, once the development is done and your model is also ready, you go into the testing mode. And this is again a lot of hand holding with your products, a lot of product usage guides. You do something called as beta testing, where you enable your sales folks in case questions come to them from clients. You enable your customer success managers with as much information as possible to guide them throughout this journey. Trainings for weeks on end before your beta testing starts, and a lot of documentation is what I remember from this whole process. Slightly frustrating, but extremely rewarding because you get a lot of good feedback from clients. In the B2C space, everything that I said about creating the model and engineering development is pretty much similar when you're getting to your testing phase. Choosing the right AI algorithms, making sure to continuously monitor and refine your performance metrics, identifying and mitigating any biases in the model, very important as part of your whole ethical AI process. And I can't stress this enough. When you don't have clients to talk to and get immediate feedback from, especially on the B2C journey, having a very strong product equity team or a team that makes sure that you're doing everything in a fair manner is really crucial, because it just avoids any sense of erroneous product outcomes. There have been outcomes where a machine learning model based on images and videos specifically on google.com have shown results which have been so controversial that they had to pull down those products. And this has not just been on online SEOs or anything. There have been B2C products also which have fibbed in the past, but it's just so important for you to be aware of the limitations of your ML algo going into your B2C testing arena, because you don't have customers to talk to. You need to be extremely vetted throughout the process. And even during your engineering development, you don't have a simpler version that you can try out on a website like Bing.com, right? You have millions of customers. If we lose even a fraction of clicks on a daily basis, we're losing out on millions of dollars. So the service that you end up building needs to be stress tested enough. The ML model that's on it, it has to have extremely good alerting and monitoring systems in place. And you need to have a lot of dashboards and alerting systems basically to let you know that something is wrong very early on in the process, and not wait for things to escalate when you're testing. So you have to make sure that all of these things are in place before you start your experimentation journey. So what testing looks like in terms of B2C is typically an A/B testing scenario, which means that you have a control and a treatment group of users. The control group of users don't see a product, but the treatment group of users do. So the success of your product is really dependent on what kind of success metrics you set up. Because again, feedback from users is going to be a series of dashboards for you. So the right metrics that you capture in your dashboards, the better decision making that can be done. So when you're rolling out these kind of products, setting up guardrail metrics is really important. I'll give you an example. So what we decided to do was, as the users or online shoppers on Bing.com ended up clicking on various search results, we wanted to show them ads within the websites that they were in. How do we do that? And if we do that, will users get pissed off and leave? If we do that, will users start closing the website? If we do that, will user footprint for certain brands reduce? You need to have a lot of guardrail metrics. And also, if we do that, will users end up clicking on our ads a lot and forget other parts of Bing.com to come back to? So, a lot of things to think about when you have a situation like this. So, a lot of guardrail metrics in place. Um, and we know that this is all being powered by a very non-deterministic thing, such as a machine learning product, which doesn't behave the same way in two different scenarios with 100% confidence, or even two same scenarios for that matter. So having metrics which are related to the model's performance also is really crucial, like precision, recall, all of those things. So once your experimentation is done over, a couple of weeks, to give time for users to get used to this experience, formulate enough change in behavior patterns and all of that, we look at metrics which have statistically significant movement on our scorecards. And that's when you take a decision as to whether whatever you're testing out is making sense. It's moving your North Star metric of, in our case, it was clicks on ads essentially, and making sure that your guardrail metrics are not tanking and you're reducing business for the entire search engine as a whole. Extremely interesting part of the journey and very data intensive. So again, if anyone's interested in venturing into this space, having basic idea of what experimentation means, the different metrics that go into this, would give you a huge edge over the others. Finally, you would have finished your testing and it's time to launch and monitor your product. This is an extremely important part and exciting part of both journeys. So on the B2B side, if you recall, we had beta tested a personalized promotions platform with a couple of our brands, right? And the feedback that we had gotten was things are going well. We're targeting a lot more customers that we were hoping to target. In fact, we're getting customers whom we didn't even know that we could target, and our reach has expanded quite a bit. So that's the kind of feedback after a lot of course, minor feedback about changes in the experience as well that we incorporated. We get into the pre-launch phase, where in this phase, as a product manager, you have to take some executive decisions around, okay, this has worked really well for 10 clients. Who are the other 50 or 100 or 1,000 clients that I can roll this out to? Typically, it would not be rolled out to 100% of clients at one go. A phased release is what would happen. So in your pre-launch, you are in a phase where you figure out who your early adopters are. And you start aligning your sales, marketing, support teams to start reaching out to these clients. Based on all of the documentation that you had created and modified throughout this process, you share out all of this information with these clients. Now remember, since there's an ML model powering your product, there is again a series of ethical AI principles that need to be explained to the client, and they need to know that they're utilizing something which is trained on users' footprint data on something like an Instacart. So having your documentation filled with this kind of information is crucial, and making sure you run it by the legal and privacy teams is going to be key to your job as a product manager as well. Finally, you come to your soft launch phase. And the fun part of this is sometimes you get to present and host webinars and do press coverages and do trade show presentations to let the world know that this product is actually live. There's a lot of word of mouth coverage that happens, a lot of demos. A lot of clients have no idea how to onboard onto a product, even though you've given them a lot of documentation. So you end up handholding them anyway. So the process of onboarding clients onto your MVP or your soft launch product is, key to this journey. Once we launched our, personalized promotions product, this is available publicly on the Instacart website as well. There are a number of different brands that saw a lot of growth, and Kodak was one of them on the Instacart platform. So once this was launched, that's when actually the stress begins, because you need to monitor and make sure that nothing is breaking on this wild machine learning model, which is live and powering this product. So another important thing is your product is basically being powered by data, which is footprint left by shoppers on Instacart, right? Now, these shoppers can change their behavior whenever they want. So it's important to keep retraining your model and launching new versions of your product. There's something that happens called drift in any machine learning model, which is trained on data which continuously changes. And that drift is called basically a drift in the values that the machine learning model confidently puts out. And a lot of teams, they launch something, they forget about it for a whole year, and they come back and they look at their dashboards, and their engagement has dropped 20%, stuff like that. So you can avoid things like that by retraining your models continuously and adding in more features, and just making sure the algorithm is robust and really crucial to scale. Coming to the B2C scenario, your launches, again, are not as noisy or press worthy as your B2B launches, because you're not really letting users know that this is getting launched. You're doing phase launches where you're launching for 5% of online shoppers first, maybe in the US first, or UK first, or Europe first, or India first, stuff. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's kind of how your launches work. And obviously, everything with respect to your soft launch monitoring are very similar to what happens in your B2B scenario as well. So just to give you an idea of what we ended up launching, if you ever use the Edge browser, whenever you go to any possible website on the Edge browser, and if that website has an image on it, you can literally find the products which are in that image powered by Bing ads right now. So we were able to, launch product ads which were powered by multimedia, which gave us, millions and millions of dollars, because we ended up reaching the users where they were. And that was sort of the product that came out of all of this. So in conclusion, the whole journey of building AI products across B2B and B2C scenarios is very interesting, albeit hard. There are certain considerations you might have to keep in mind aside from building products without any ML or AI in both of these scenarios, as I highlighted, but it's an extremely fun journey. And always remember to be ethical in your process of building out machine learning models. All right, I did not realize 30 minutes or 45 minutes go by, but I hope this was insightful and useful to you all. I do write about this, so feel free to look me up and follow my blog. Thank you so much.
Thank you.